Well, hello scrappers, welcome back to my channel. Mike here, and this is part 3 of me trying to deal with Ken's rags and filters. Back in part 1 I was doing an incineration on them, and whatever chemicals these were soaked with caused such a bad flare-up that it melted right through the bottom of my pan and fell down into my furnace that I was using to heat the pan. Pretty much a disaster there. In part 2, I recovered from that disaster by scraping up all of the congealed lava that was produced by this stuff and just soaking it in a bucket of water for a few days. Everything softened up, fell back down into this kind of stuff here. I gave it a few rinses to get the bulk of the chemicals out of it, and then I ran it all through a fine, well, not super fine, only about a 1/4 inch screen to get the big pieces of metal from my pot and fire brick from my furnace out of it. There's still some big chunks in here. There's a lot of IC dyes and chunks of, well, who knows what. Some of them break up like mud clods and others are kind of hard. Not sure exactly what's in here. But anyway, I've been experimenting with this stuff off camera, and I think I have a way to get the gold out of it. There is gold in here. In fact, as I stir it around, I can occasionally get flashes of gold foils. There was one that were stuck on the rags before incineration. And that gold's still in here. Plus, those rags were soaked with chemicals from gold recovery, so there was probably a lot of gold dissolved in those chemicals that's now in here in this ash. Now, after parts 1 and 2, a lot of comments came in about what I should do with this stuff, and some of them are pretty good. Keep those comments going, by the way, I appreciate it. Some people think that I should chemically treat half of it and smelt the other half and see which works better. Not a bad idea, not a bad idea, but my compelling furnace isn't done yet. That's a separate project that I have a series of videos on, and there'll be more videos in that series as I work on it. But I'll put a link to that series of videos in the upper right if you want to check it out. But yeah, my compelling furnace is not ready for prime time, but maybe I'll set some of this stuff aside and we'll try smelting it, and once the compelling furnace is working, we'll see if we get any precious metals out of it that way. In the meantime, I'm going to treat some of this stuff chemically. Now, another comment I got a lot of is, you need to incinerate it more. I mean, this stuff seriously burned at high temperature, okay? We got up to where we melted the bottom out of a stainless steel pot. But a lot of people say it should be incinerated more. Well, rather than going that route, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some in one of my casserole dishes here and put it on the burner in my fume hood on high and see if we can calcine it or cook off any remaining volatile materials that way, rather than going the route of re-incinerating this stuff, okay? I still haven't got a new pot to do it in either, so we'll do that. So I'm going to measure out a quantity of this stuff, and we'll cook it on a burner in the fume hood for a while. And then we'll move on to further treatment. So let me get my scale booted up here. There's 20 grams, 40, 64. Let's see if we can get up to 100. 84, 94, 102. Close enough. Close enough to 100. I'm going to spread this stuff out thin. Break up the clods, and we will put it on the burner, one of the burners in my fume hood, and we'll get this just as hot as I can get it. We'll cook the snot out of it, and then we'll move on to further treatment. So let's go over to the fume hood. Okay, here we are on the burner. I'm going to turn this up to just as hot as it will get, okay? And I do have a little experience with this stuff. As I said, I've been working with it off camera, and I know from experience this stuff's going to get a little popcorny as it heats up. So I'm going to cover it with a screen to keep the big pieces from flying out. Also note the color. It's fairly black right now. Not super black, but pretty dark. But as it cooks, I think you'll see an interesting color change in it. So we'll just let that do its thing for a while, and we'll be back and check it out. Okay. Yeah, it's probably not going to come through on the audio, but I can hear it snapping and popping in there. That's the popcorniness I was talking about. It'll also smoke a little bit as it heats up, but it's not giving off a whole lot of vapor. I don't even have the fume hood running. But I'll turn it on here anyway, just since it's warming up and it is going to start evolving something. Even though there's not much, it might be poisonous, who knows. So, I'll give you a quick look. Really not much of a change so far. Oh, there was some popping. Yeah, let me put this back on because it's jumping right out of the casserole dish. And that's going to go on for a while. So just leave that on there and keep it in. There's a little bit of light smoke coming off of it. I don't even know if that's showing up in the video. And I don't know if it's showing up in the video, but this stuff is turning sort of a reddish brown color. It's no longer black. It's becoming reddish brown, and I think that color is going to continue to manifest itself as we go. We break up a few more clods here. And keep this stuff a-roasting. Okay, this stuff's been cooking for well over an hour now. Let's have a look at it. It's not smoking anymore. There's no more popcorning going on, no more crackling. I would say it is done, and I don't know how well it is showing up in the video, but the color change is fairly dramatic. It was pretty dark black before. Now it's kind of a dark brownish red. I hope that's showing up at least to some extent. I suspect we're changing the oxidation state of some iron in there, maybe causing that. Possibly. But I think this is about as cooked as it's gonna get. So I think we'll turn off the heat and move on to the next step. Okay, this stuff's still pretty hot. Let me get it into beaker. Oh yeah, that's hot. Wow. Oh, that's hot. Whoa, we gotta set that down. All right. Get the rest of this stuff in here. Coming right through the gloves. That is hot. Yeah, melting the end of my brush too. Okay. Well, I guess we've cooked that pretty darn well. Alright, so for my next step, I'm going to give this a good boil in muriatic acid. We are going to just boil this like crazy and get whatever out of it that we can. Put in a goodly amount of acid, turn the heat back on. We are just going to boil this hard and for a good while. It's like the old joke, how do you cook kidneys? You boil the piss out of them. Okay, that's what we're going to do with this stuff. We're going to boil it good and then decant off the liquid. And then we will further process the sludge that's left over. Okay? Let's get this boiling. Well, this stuff has finally come up to a boil. So I'm going to let this boil for quite a while, maybe the rest of the afternoon, and then shut it off and let it sit overnight, and then tomorrow we will deal with it. Okay? So, be back then. Okay, this stuff has had a good, long, hard boil in muriatic acid. It's had a chance to cool down, so I'm going to take it out. I'm going to decant off this dark liquid. We'll test it for the presence of gold. I'm not really expecting any to be in there. I'm thinking the gold's going to be in the sludge left at the bottom, And this is just going to be a bunch of base metal salts that have been dissolved by the acid. So let me get it out and we'll get started. Okay, let's give this stuff a quick test for gold. Very green. Very dark green. And no. The dark green color went away when I put stannous chloride solution on it. It did not darken up, so we have no gold in here. So I'm just going to gently pour off this green liquid. And we will treat the nasty sludge that's left in the bottom of this beaker and see if we can find any gold in it. I suspect there's a lot of iron, possibly some copper, some nickel, a few other base metals in this stuff, but no precious metals. Maybe I'll give it a couple of rinses with distilled water before we put it back in the fume hood and hit it with Aqua Regia. Just see if I can get some more of this green yellow stuff out of it, because I'm sure that's base metals. Okay, so I will do that. I will give it some rinses. I'll wait for that to settle and decant off the liquid. Maybe 2 rinses, and then we'll head into the fume hood and hit it with Aqua Regia. Okay, I have rinsed this stuff pretty good. There's a little bit of liquid left in here. Let me swirl this around really good. Take this off so I don't fling it across the yard. Let me swirl this around really well. Let it settle. Have a look at the bottom. Can't really tell if there's any gold in there or not. I was hoping to see some visible gold, but inconclusive. But we'll put it in the fume hood. We'll hit it with some Aqua Regia and see if we can find some gold in there. I'll bet there is some. Okay, let's go. All right, fume hood on. Put some muriatic acid in here. That should be enough. And let's get some nitric acid in here. Make some Aqua Regia. Let's see here. I'm gonna put, see, that's 3, just short of 3. That's just short of 6 milliliters in there. Well, we will start with that and see what happens. Turn some heat on. Give it a bit of a swirl here. Mix it up. And we'll see what happens as this warms up. Well, this has been cooking for a couple minutes, and I don't know if it's showing up, but we got a little bit of bubbling going on in there. That's not from the heat. It hasn't had a time to get really hot yet, so I think we got some kind of chemical reaction going on. Hopefully we got gold going in solution. So we'll just let this continue to cook and see what comes of it. Alright, it's been a few more minutes. Got serious reaction going on there. Got some orange fumes being evolved. So I'm hoping that means we got gold going in solution. I will let this reaction go until it stops. Maybe put another milliliter to a nitric acid in there and see if there's any further reaction. And if not, we'll be ready to denox and filter. If there is a reaction, well, I'll just keep adding small amounts of nitric until there is no more reaction. Then I'll denox and filter. But hey, hopefully we're finding some gold in there. It's looking promising. Looking very promising. Well, I went off and did some yard work for a half hour or so, come back, and it looks like the reaction has completely died away, so let me hit it with a little bit more nitric acid and we'll see what happens. Not a huge amount, but put a little bit more in. A little over 1 milliliter. And just see if we get any further reaction out of it. Oh yeah, look at it go. Okay. Yeah. I guess it needed some more nitric acid. Ooh, it's hot. Alright, so we'll just let that go. And I'll keep adding small additions of nitric acid like that until I don't see any more reaction. Well, the reaction has slowed down again, and off camera I put about another milliliter of nitric acid in, and the reaction has revived again. I'm thinking there's still some base metals in there, and that's why I'm getting this kind of strong reaction. I doubt there's enough gold in there to need this much nitric acid to dissolve. But hey, that would be nice. But I doubt it. So I'm just going to keep this up. I won't make you watch every addition. It'll just be back when it's done. Alright, my last addition of nitric acid produced almost no reaction, so I would say this is done. What do you say we test it for the presence of gold? See if we've got any gold in solution. Let's find out. It's kind of boiling inside the tube. Interesting. Okay, let's hit it with a little stannous chloride solution. See what kind of a reaction we get this time. Oh, now that's more like what we're looking for. Oh yeah. Dark, dark purple. Okay, so we found the gold in Ken's filters and rags finally. Okay, cool. Let's go back over to the fume hood. Okay, first thing I want to do is turn the heat off. Should start cooling down. And then I've got my usual concoction for denoxing here. It's saturated solution of sulfamic acid. So let's get this stuff denoxed. Yeah, there is a little bit of excess nitric in there. Not a huge amount, but a little bit. Okay. Alright. Let me go get some ice. We'll ice this down and cool it. And then we can filter it and drop the gold in there. Okay, here goes some shaved ice. Cool it down and dilute it. That'll give any lead sulfate in there a chance to drop out of solution. Any silver chloride can drop out of solution. And just to facilitate cooling, I'm going to take it off of this still warm hot plate and put it over here on this cold plate. And we'll wait for that to cool down. And I will get my, maybe I will get my filtration apparatus out. I don't know, it is super, super windy out here today. I'm afraid it might blow the whole thing over. We got some bad gusts coming through. We got a storm front coming through, I think, tomorrow. So it is super windy today. This might have to wait to get filtered for a while. We'll see what the wind conditions are like in a couple hours. I'll just let that sit there and melt the dilute. Okay, the wind has let up a little bit, although we still get some pretty good gusts through here. And a lot of debris falling down out of the trees. But I want to get this stuff filtered and get the gold dropping today. That would be nice. So this has had a chance to, the ice is melted and it's all settled to the bottom, and I don't know if that's showing up, but that layer of black sludge on the bottom is now sort of a light gray. So I'm wondering if that is silver chloride that's come out of solution. Kind of got the look. I could process this stuff for silver as well. Back when I did my own filters, first I got the gold out of them using a method similar to this, although I didn't have the pot melt through and the molten lava problem. But then after I got the gold out, I treated the debris that was left to get the silver out, and I used ammonia for that. I'll put a link to that video in the upper right if you want to see how I got silver out of my out of the ashes left over from processing my rags and filters. So I'll probably try that with Ken's stuff too. So I think I'll wait till I have more. I'll keep the residue here, and I'll wait till I've got more. So let me get this liquid through. It's going through nicely, coming through nice and clean. Green is all get out, but well, what are you going to do? Those filters were saturated with green liquid when I burned them, so I think the hydrochloric acid boils took a lot of it out, but obviously not all of it. But that's okay. We'll get some gold out of this anyway. It'll be dirty gold, but it's better than no gold. Okay, so let me continue filtering. This is going to take a little while, especially once I get down to the dregs down here and get the solids in the filter. It'll clog up quick. So I'm at the stage of washing the color out of the filter and the remains here, and you can see how much lighter it is. I mean, it was a dark brownish red or reddish brown before the acid boils and the treatment with Aqua Regia, and now we've got a fairly light gray material here. I kind of suspect there's a lot of silver chloride mixed in with that. Could be wrong. It'll be interesting to find out, though. Like I said before, I will save this stuff and eventually try and get silver out of it if I can. Okay, let me continue washing the color out of the filter, and then we can drop the gold out of this stuff. Okay, we know there's gold in this stuff. Let's see if we can get it out. So we'll put some SMB, sodium metabisulfite, in there to precipitate it, and that's what's in this stuff. Stump out by Bonide. Not every stump remover has SMB in it, but this stuff does. Make sure you get the right stuff, okay? Let me get the fume hood going, because this is going to be really stinky. I don't want to smell it. The SMB is going to interact with the hydrochloric acid in there and produce sulfur dioxide, which will cause the gold to precipitate out of solution. That's how SMB works. There's not a huge amount of gold in here, but there are a huge amount of contaminants, so this might take a little bit of SMB. Generally, the cleaner the solution is, the better the gold wants to come out. Well, this solution isn't very clean. A lot of contaminants there. Some iron, some copper, and some who knows what, probably. But that ought to be about enough SMB. I'm not seeing the white foaming, which is characteristic of having enough, but that ought to be enough. That's an awful lot of SMB for not a whole lot of gold, I'm thinking, so. Okay, so we'll just lid this up and we'll let it sit. May or may not get a dramatic color change. Probably just darken up, I imagine, as the gold starts coming out of solution, and it may take a little while. I'll show you when something happens. Oh yeah, that's darkened up a lot. In just a couple of minutes, it's taken me to clean the stuff out of the Buckner funnel and put it in a Tupperware container to save for the future. And I'll try processing it for silver along with the rest of the ashes from Ken's filters. Not something I really want to do on the small scale. But hey, I think we got a gold drop going on. Let me look here. Don't see any gold floating on the surface. A lot of times there'll be gold floating on the surface when the gold drops, but not this time. As long as it drops to the bottom, I'm happy. It doesn't have to float on the surface. Okay, we'll let this go and see what comes out of it. Oh wow, that has gotten very, very, very dark over the last couple of minutes. We might have more than just gold dropping out of there. We might have, obviously I think there's a lot of copper contamination in there. And I'm pretty certain that the sulfur dioxide from when I put the SMB in combines with the copper compounds in there and creates copper sulfide, which is a very dark and colloidal suspension that forms in the liquid. So we may or may not have gold dropping out, but I think we've got copper sulfide forming in there. I have seen this many times before. Those of you who are used to watching videos by like Street Tips or somebody else who's processing very pure, very concentrated gold, you may be surprised at the amount of SMB I had to put in there to get a reaction. But it's the copper contamination that causes the problem. It chews up a lot of the sulfur dioxide that's produced. So you really got to overload it with SMB to get the gold to drop. And it's going to be an ugly, dirty gold drop, but hey, I'll take it. Look what it came from, you know? A waste product. So we'll refine it. We'll make it into something pretty. Okay, just going to let it sit and settle. Well, it's the next morning. And this has had a chance to settle. The liquid is still quite dark. And again, I'm certain that is copper sulfide. We probably had some copper chloride, copper nitrate in there, and that all that sulfur dioxide from the SMB I put in there has converted it into copper sulfide, which tends to stay as a colloidal suspension in the liquid. But the good news is there's a dark layer of gold on the bottom of the beaker, so we need to get that out. And there's a thin film of gold floating on the surface of the beaker. Let me knock that down with a water spray. Give that a chance to sink, and I will get set up to siphon off the bulk of this liquid, and we'll see how much gold we've got in the bottom of this beaker. Okay, let me siphon this stuff off. I'm going to siphon it into my temporary stock pot down here. I let stuff sit in the temporary stock pot for a while before putting it in the main stock pot. Any fine gold suspended in the liquid can fall out. Any gold that wants to further precipitate out of the liquid can precipitate out. It's a lot easier to recover from this stock pot than from the main stock pot. Now, some of you have pointed out in the past when I'm siphoning like this that I could do this a lot quicker using my vacuum system. I could set up a vacuum siphoning system. And yes, you are correct about that. And I have actually done that sometimes in the past. I don't normally do it when I'm siphoning fine gold like this. And this is going to be fine gold because this precipitated out of a solution with a lot of contaminants in it. The gold tends to be really fine when you do that. And the vacuum system would work just a little bit too well. It would create a lot of turbulence in here, and I'd wind up sucking up a lot of gold. It'd be easy to get out of my temporary stock pot again, but you know, it's just going to kind of throw me off trying to figure out how much gold I actually got out of 100 grams of the ash from Ken's rags and filters. So we'll do it this way. It just takes a little longer. I'll speed it up so you don't have to watch the whole thing, but hey, keep those ideas coming. Sometimes you folks out there in YouTube land, you come up with some really great ideas that I haven't thought of. So, you know, keep them coming. I appreciate it. All right. I'll give you a look at what's on the bottom of the beaker here in a minute. Let me clean out my hose and I'll reposition the camera and we'll take a look at how much is down there. So there's our gold It's probably got some contamination from copper sulfide. I wouldn't be surprised. But hey, it looks like a decent amount. Like that would definitely move the scale anyway. Alright. I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I think I'm just going to redissolve this in Aqua Regia and reprecipitate it. And then we should get some cleaner gold, and we'll measure that. We'll measure the weight on that, because this stuff I think is contaminated. Okay, so let me get this back in the fume hood. Now I'll put it in a smaller beaker, and we'll redissolve it in Aqua Regia. Alright, so let's get this stuff redissolved. I've got it in a much smaller beaker. It's only 500 milliliter beaker, so we should be able to dissolve that gold in there without any trouble. Put a little bit of muriatic acid in here. Muriatic acid. Get the fume hood going. You maybe hear me sneezing and sniffling a little out here today. It's not from the chemicals, it's from the pollen. It is raining pollen out here from our oak trees. There's about not quite 2 milliliters of nitric acid, and I'll bet that will be more than enough to get that gold in solution. We'll see. I can always add more, but I'll bet that'll be enough. Lid it up, put a little bit of heat to it, and that should dissolve in just about no time. I can filter it and then drop the gold again, and we should get much cleaner gold, because that stuff kind of looked nasty. Alright, so I'm just going to let this warm up and dissolve. Oh, and I'll clear up one detail while we're waiting for something to happen here, because somebody will mention it. I did not do a stannous chloride test on camera to see if I had gotten all the gold out of the solution before I siphoned it off. I did that off camera. I did that early this morning when I first came out here, just to check. Didn't have the camera equipment set up. Sorry. I do more stannous chloride tests than I show on camera. I think they get repetitive, so I don't show all of them, but people are always saying you don't do enough. Well, okay, I did it. There was no gold left in solution. It's all in there. So, just so you know, because somebody's going to bring it up in the comments. They always do. I do believe we're starting to get a reaction. Liquid's starting to warm up. I think that's the gold going back in solution. Okay. We'll just let it cook. Well, that was nothing short of amazing. Once the reaction started, it completed in a period of about 2 minutes. Let me turn the heat off. I mean, this really, it didn't even get that hot. And all that gold has gone back into solution. Very nice. Let me get some denoxing solution ready. We'll denox it. I'll get some ice, and hey, we'll drop the gold again later this morning. All right, let's get this stuff denoxed. I've got a saturated solution of sulfamic acid here. As quickly as that gold dissolved, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little excess nitric in here, and yes, there is. Tell by the bubbling as the sulfamic acid solution goes in. It is destroying the nitric acid, the excess nitric acid, converting it into nitrous oxide, which is bubbling out of solution as a gas, but it also converts it into sulfuric acid, which is nice because we get some sulfuric acid in the solution without having to actually add any, and that will help control any lead that might be in there by causing it to precipitate out of solution as lead sulfate. I'm going to ice this down with some shaved ice, and I'm going to move it off of this hot burner onto one that hasn't been turned on today so that it'll chill nicer. That looks like some pretty clean stuff. It doesn't look like there's a lot of particulates in there, but we'll see what precipitates out as it cools, as the ice melts. And we'll filter it, and we'll drop the gold again later today. Later this morning, I'm thinking. This project's going quick. I like that. Alright, the ice is almost completely melted. Boy, it's taking a long time to melt. But I'm going to start filtering this. I'm just going to gravity filter it since there's not a lot of solids in here. It looks like there is a thin film of something on the bottom of the beaker that has crashed out of solution, but on the whole, this looks like pretty good stuff. Certainly a lot nicer color than what we precipitated gold out of last time. And there's not too much solids here, so it should go through the filter just with gravity pretty darn quick. So I'll get this filtered, we'll get it back in the fume hood, and we will drop the gold again and see how it looks then. Okay, nicely filtered. Boy, that's a beautiful color compared to what we were working with before. I got a feeling we're going to have a much better gold drop this time. Got my bone-kneed stump out here with some SMB in it. I got a feeling we're not going to need as much this time either. A few heaping teaspoonfuls should probably get the job done. Give it a stir. Oh yeah, look at the color fade. That's dead giveaway. Color goes away. And it comes back dark. Oh yeah, look at it darken up. Oh yeah, we're getting the gold drop. Easy peasy. Okay, we'll just leave that to do its thing. Caught that on camera. Always love it when I get it on camera. And we'll just leave that to do its thing and see what we get. And I bet it's going to be prettier looking gold this time. Well, it's only been a little while, and yeah, the liquid's starting to clear from the top down. The gold's settling much quicker than yesterday. So we may still have a few contaminants in there, but nothing like yesterday. This is going to be much cleaner gold. And I'm thinking there's going to be enough there to get a weight so I can get an estimate on how much gold there is left in the rest of Ken's rags and filters ashes. So we'll just let that settle, and then I'll clean up the gold some and we'll weigh it and see what we got. Well, it's the next morning, and look at that. Is that a beautiful gold drop or what? All the gold's down at the bottom of the beaker. The liquid is crystal clear without a hint of color to it. I think we got some much cleaner gold in there than the first time around. Alright, the first thing I want to do, just to satisfy everybody who's going to bring it up, is we'll do a stannous chloride test to make sure we don't have any gold in solution. Although from the color, I would say if there's any in solution, it's not even worth going after. I'll just put the liquid right in the stock pot. They'll start cleaning up the gold. Alright? Okay, let's do a stannous chloride test. Come over here and get some of this liquid. Nice clear liquid, for sure. Some stannous chloride solution on it. And we've got nothing. Got some sediment in my stannous chloride, but that's about it. Okay, so I'm gonna decant off that liquid into my temporary stock pot, and then I'm going to give the gold some distilled water boils to try and clean it up. Then I'll dry it out and we'll weigh it. Distilled water boil. Gold's cleaning up. Not a lot of gold in there, but it is cleaning up. It's agglomerating together. This is much cleaner gold than what we had last time. I'm liking the looks of it. Drying up the gold to get a weight on it. Not a lot of gold there, but I'm sure there's enough to weigh. So that'll give me just some idea how much gold there is in this stuff. Okay, got the gold. I have to say, that looks like some pretty good gold. The color is really really nice. I think redissolving it in Aqua Regia and reprecipitating it was a good move. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't look like there's a lot of gold there. But this came from what, 100 grams of material. So, you know, 100 grams ain't much. Look at that. 0.3 grams of gold from 100 grams of material. So that would be about 3 grams to the kilo, or 3,000 grams to the ton. Ken, send me more of your filters and rags. That's rich stuff. Okay, so let me weigh up how much of this ash I have left. And then we'll be able to figure out roughly, because, you know, it's probably not, it's 100% homogeneous material. But that'll give you some rough idea of how much gold there is to get out of that material that I've got left. So let me do that. Okay, now that we know roughly how much gold we have in, you know, a given amount of this stuff, 100 grams, got us 0.3 grams of gold. Let's see how much of this stuff got left to deal with, alright? Now the nugget effect may throw us off, either high or low. And I'll explain what the nugget effect is here in a minute if you don't know what it means. I'm going to have to scrape some of this stuff out of here. Make sure it all winds up. Yeah, there's still a little bit stuck to the walls. What do we got here? 730 grams of material left. Okay. So we had 0.3 grams out of 100 grams of this material. So 0.3 divided by 100 equals 0.003. And then if we multiply that by 730, we're talking about maybe 2.19, 2.2 grams of gold left in there. Now, again, the nugget effect could throw us off either way. I'm hoping there's a lot more than that in there because it's going to take a fair amount of work to get the gold out of that. And I can see gold in there. So the nugget effect is where you're trying to assay the gold amount in a given bit of material. But sometimes there'll be a nugget that comes along and that will throw you off. If there's a nugget in the stuff you're assaying, you're going to get a really high gold value. But if there's no nugget in the stuff you're assaying, you're going to get a much lower gold value. So the question is, were any of those bits of gold that I can see in here, were they in the stuff I processed? And if so, how many of them? And if not, how many of them are left in here? And how much are they going to boost our gold value? So it's an unknown. I'm hoping that we're going to wind up with a lot more than 2.2 grams of gold out of this stuff to make it kind of worth the effort, you know, to process it. Especially all the effort that's gone into it so far. And I think I can scale up the process that I used for this and do the rest of it in maybe 2 or 3 batches. And I think I'll get started on that in the next video. So, if you found this video at all interesting, educational, informative, inspirational, whatever, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to see my future videos where I process this stuff and do all kinds of other things. Check out my second channel, Electric Geek 64. There's interesting stuff going on over there. If you're at all interested in electronics or retro computing, check that out. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks a lot for watching this one. Bye.